My name is Olivia Swak-Goldman. I'm the Executive Director of the Wildlife Justice Commission. And we have a phenomenal panel that I'll introduce shortly for this panel on enforcement in action, which is hosted jointly by the Wildlife Justice Commission and the government of Nigeria. And we're thrilled to have such a broad array of dignitaries with us, and also really grateful for so many dignitaries that have taken time out of their busy schedule to join us here this evening, including on the panel, and also the Consul General and the Director General for Forestry Research of Nigeria. So, and as well as their teams, the staff from these really important organizations. So thank you for taking the time this evening. This event, we have several objectives that we'd like to achieve in this limited time that we have together. The first is to spotlight the successful enforcement against organized criminal groups that are trafficking in CITES-listed species, specifically pangolin scales and elephant ivory. The second is to build on the information document number 5, which was submitted by Nigeria, and this includes findings and best practices from the Wildlife Justice Commission's recent report, Disruption and Disarray, Analysis of Pangolin Scale and Elephant Ivory Trafficking over the years 2015 to 2024. So quite a long review we did, and it's filled with data about trends and best practices, and is really a very comprehensive document. I would encourage you all to review it. We have some executive summaries with us here, and I think we have a QR code also, so you can download it if that's easier. The third goal of this evening is to show Nigeria as a case study, to demonstrate the impact that coordinated regional and multi-stakeholder enforcement efforts can have in disrupting organized criminal groups and slowing down the illegal trades. And finally, to highlight latest data, trends, and actionable insights to ensure effective CITES implementation and contribute to efforts to protect vulnerable species at the national and regional levels. So I think everybody here knows wildlife crime is one of the largest transnational organized crimes, driving species to extinction, and it's really run by organized criminal groups. And that's something that maybe wasn't focused on quite as much, but the links between organized crime and conservation are absolutely essential. And that's what we, as the Wildlife Justice Commission, try to bring to these type of fora, and also to share with our colleagues in national governments. We've seen that strengthened enforcement and sustained collaboration is crucial to disrupt and dismantle these networks operating at a global scale, to ensure effective compliance and implementation of CITES provisions and other international agreements, and third, to translate these efforts into lasting and impactful conservation outcomes. Now, the Wildlife Justice Commission and the Nigeria Customs Service partnership is a great example of this multi-stakeholder and intelligence-led enforcement strategies that have led to highly disruptive impacts on criminal landscape with a change of perception. The illegal wildlife trade is now viewed as high risk, low reward inactivity, and I can't stress enough what a fundamental shift that is. Consistent and targeted criminal justice approaches can shift the balance and give time for vulnerable species to recover, for example, the pangolin and the African elephant. I would like to introduce the speakers. I'll mention their bios just in a minute, but we have the Honorable Minister Malam Balareba Abbas Lowell, Minister of the Environment of Nigeria and head of Nigeria's delegation to CITES CoP20. He'll be providing a video statement because unfortunately he had to depart. We have Professor Innocent Bariati Barikor, Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency of Nigeria, known to us all as NESREA. We have Ms. Ala Adzenda, Deputy Director, Federal Department of Forestry of the Federal Ministry of Environment of Nigeria. We have Dr. Ross McEwing, Science and Technology Lead for UNODC Global Program on Crimes that Affect the Environment, and Ms. Abim Isfiada, Regional Manager for West and Central Africa at the Wildlife Justice Commission. We're going to start with His Honorable Minister of the Environment of Nigeria and his video message, but just to share his incredible experience in governance and in policy development. He guides teams across the ministry to improve environmental planning, strengthen enforcement, and deepen reforms that protect forests and wildlife and natural resources. Advocates for stronger measures to combat wildlife crime and supports regional and international collaboration efforts. We can show the video now. Thank you.
Distinguished parties, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to address this important gathering at the margins of CITES CoP20 in Samarkand. On behalf of the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I bring warm greetings and affirm our unwavering commitment to the global fight against wildlife crime and the protection of our shared natural heritage. I also commend the Wildlife Justice Commission, for its steadfast partnership, which has significantly strengthened the enforcement of wildlife laws and cross-border cooperation. This discussion is timely, as wildlife crime continues to threaten biodiversity. Nigeria's transformation from a major transit hub for illegal wildlife products, the regional leader in enforcement against wildlife crimes, demonstrates the impact of strong political will and effective international collaboration. As chair of the CITES Working Group on Wildlife Crime Enforcement support in West Africa and Central Africa, Nigeria coordinates regional strategies to promote intelligence sharing and works closely with CITES United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, the Interpol, the World Customs Organization, and the WGC to harmonize enforcement efforts. A major milestone is the establishment of Nigerian Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force, WLEFT, which brings together customs, police, National Environmental Standard Regulation and Enforcement Agency, NESREA, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Ministry of Justice, National Park Service, and others. The task force has strengthened intelligence sharing, improved joint operations, and streamlined prosecutions, resulting in multiple arrests, seizures, and convictions. With support from the WGC, Nigeria has also advanced financial investigation, enhanced analytical capacity, and dismantled transnational wildlife trafficking networks. Nigeria's enforcement framework is now stronger than ever, supported by a national strategy to combat wildlife and forest crime. This is a strengthened endangered species bill dedicated to combating wildlife crime involving customs, specifically trained prosecutors and judges, and deeper community engagement. As we look into the future, Nigeria views wildlife crime as a threat not only to the environment but to national security and economic integrity. Our program includes institutionalizing the task force with dedicated funding, expanding intelligence capacities, deepening regional cooperation, increasing community participation, and raising public awareness to reduce demand for illegal wildlife products. Distinguished delegates, no nation can win this fight alone. Wildlife trafficking networks are global and fast-moving, and only strong coordinated cooperation can bring CITES framework fully to life. Nigeria remains committed to leading by example and working closely with partners to protect biodiversity and strengthen global enforcement system. As I conclude, I express sincere appreciation to the Wildlife Justice Commission, the CITES Secretariat, our regional partners, and the courageous officers on the front lines. Thank you for your attention and for your continued commitment to protecting the world's wildlife.
Now, we're very grateful to the Minister for his remarks and highlighting Nigeria's leadership in advancing stronger measures against the illegal wildlife trade. We also want to commend his strong support for multi-agency collaboration, and you see that here in the successful initiatives like the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force, and his commitment to strengthen provisions and penalties against wildlife traffickers, soon to be introduced into Nigeria's new Endangered Species Conservation and Protection Bill. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to once again thank the Controller General of National Parks and the Director General for Forestry Research Institute for taking time and joining us this evening. So thank you very much. I'd like now to turn to our experts, these phenomenal individuals have so much to share with us. We'll do one by one, and then we'll open it up for some questions. I'm going to start with Professor Barikour, Director General and Chief Executive Officer at NESREA. Professor Barikour has an amazing CV. I'll just do the highlights. He's a scholar with extensive number of publications on environmental politics, governance, and minority rights. Years of public service advancing local policies on community developments and grassroots environmental awareness. So his academic and professional engagement provides solid foundation for leadership at NESREA, where he actively champions strengthened evidence-based environmental regulations, compliance, enforcement, and interagency collaboration initiatives. Professor, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Okay, fine. Thank you. Let me thank the chair for the opportunity given me to, and indeed Nigeria and indeed NESREA to participate in this. I will be speaking on embedding CITES provisions into enforcement in Nigeria. Basically, this presentation is going to focus on how Nigeria has embedded the provisions of CITES in our enforcement actions. Basically, in doing so, we highlight some of the legal and regulatory provisions that have strengthened the enforcement process. We also will identify some of the institutional arrangements that have also reinforced and pushed forward what appears to be a strategic movement in terms of enforcement, change that has taken place in the enforcement trajectory. We're also going to highlight what appears to be an unprecedented interagency collaboration that has also been part of the success stories that we have recorded. And then to pull out the concrete enforcement successes, which will be recorded as you see in our listing. We'll also identify some of the public-private partnerships that have been at the root of the enforcement successes we have recorded, particularly between UNODC, Elephant Protection Agency, but more importantly, the WJC in recent times. We also highlight the seized wildlife management and disposal aspect. The management of after we have seized this wildlife the management of this is also a critical factor. Management and disposal has also been something that has been critical, and this is one of the areas we have also been able to achieve some successes. And then maybe conclude. And so, again, it's important to point out that NESREA is the enforcement agency of the Nigerian government. We are charged with the responsibility of enforcing environmental rules, laws, regulations, and also charged with the responsibility of enforcing treaties, conventions, and that Nigeria has gone is a signatory to. And so in that respect, it gives us the capacity to also mandate also enlarges to the extent of protecting and development of the environment and biodiversity conservation across the country. Now, with this mandate, it is under this mandate that NESREA has been able to surmount the 6-year ban that Nigeria witnessed within the period in 2011. And from there, we were able to move on. And then we also begin to have what we call the institutional enablers. Let me talk about the legal and regulatory enablers. Nigeria was consented to the Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species in 1974. But after that, it was necessary to begin to domesticate that. And so in 1985, Nigeria enacted the Endangered Species Controlled International Trade and Traffic Act, ESA E99, thereby domesticating the convention. After that, we have sufficiently supported legally that act with the National Protection and Endangered Regulations of 2011. So in 2011, NESREA did its own act on the regulations, its own regulations, SI number 16 in 2011, that was specifically designated for CITES. And after that, the National Assembly recently, you recall, just passed a bill on conservation and protection bill of 2025. The whole essence is to enlarge the coast of the 1985 bill, which was we've had some gaps in terms of penalties, the nature and volume of penalties, and have not protected the space sufficiently to ensure that people respect what we want to do. And then there's also been institutional arrangements have been sought that has also supported this process. We have the Ministry of Environment as the parent ministry, and that's institutionally designated as the CITES Management Authority. We have the National Park Service and other research institutes that is designated as the scientific authority. And then we have NESREA, which is the enforcement focal point. And then other collaborative institutions on enforcement, which include the Nigerian Customs, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, the Nigerian Police Force, and other agencies that also partner in that process. That slide, if you look at that slide, it shows you a circumstance of such collaboration that's taking place. And then if you look at the fifth slide, it shows you the interagency cooperation. And so we are also talking not just of institutional support, we are talking not only of legal framework, we are also talking of deliberate, organized agreement between agencies intended to consolidate our achievements in that space. And that's how you can explain the issue of the Joint Task Force. The Joint Task Force is an agreement between the players, the ecosystem, the players in the ecosystem to say we need to do this. And all of us have agreed on that. And so NESREA as a lead agency is there, Customs is there, Police is there, EFCC is there, the Nigerian Financial Investor Unit is there, Ministry of Justice is also there, and quite a number of others, together from the task force, the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force, WILIF. And this has significantly promoted the coordination of activities and actions around that space. Next slide. Now, coming to concrete enforcement outcomes, all this has led to concrete enforcement outcomes. If you look at that slide, you can see as a result of the task force coordination between the members of the task force, you recall that between 2011 and 2, over the years, Nigeria, through the interagency collaboration, enforcement recorded successful dismantling of a major illegal wildlife trafficking hotspot in the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja and environs. There was also a mass raid of ivory markets, 5-star hotels, and other relaxation facilities that led to seizures which were publicly reported. These seizures were under the custody of the agency until recent disposal exercises in 2023 and 2024. If you look at that slide, you see all the seizures that were made in that joint action that took place. You can see the manatee fish that was taken from fishermen and other things that were taken in custody as a result of that. NESREA has had, in attempt to ensure that we consolidate on not just the institutions, not just the partnership, not just the laws and all that, we have also been into partnership to ensure that we ensure that CITES provisions are sufficiently and directly followed. And so In that respect, we have had a lineup of partnerships with the UNODC, which was basically targeted at training and development of working documents on the international strategy to combat wildlife, corruption risk assessment and code of conduct, provision of enforcement working tools, and legal and policy integration, amongst others. These were basically the kind of support we had in that respect. And of course, it didn't stop there. We've also been had good support also from the elephant EPI between 2021 and 2020, but 2001 and 2004, where we focus on the development and training on standard operating procedures with chain of custody approaches. And then you remember the SMS program that in order to manage our stockpile for disposal. These were all support that we had from the EPI. And beyond that, we also, in recent times, have had signed an MOU with the WJC in very recent times. This has focused basically on joint intelligence and investigation support, prosecution and legal follow-up, analytical and operational support to NESREA enforcement teams, helping trace illicit wildlife supply chains and identifying traffickers and map transnational criminal networks operating through Nigeria. Our partnership with WJC in recent times has become more intense, and when we compare it to some of the partnerships we've had, have been very resourceful in the sense that it has given us a different dimension in terms of support, in terms of resource, and in terms of intelligence build-up, in terms of exposure to criminal networks and managing our ability to be part and parcel of the investigative process. I think that this has also been very useful to us. We as an agency, we have successfully managed wildlife disposal, and we don't want to overemphasize the fact of the pangolin skins and the elephant tuks, which you already know. In 2023, destruction took place. If you look at that slide 10, you will see how this was done, and then how the destruction that came, these charts were used for the build-up of the elephant tuks at the national park. And then we have our summary data on stockpile of disposal on slide 13. And then if you look at slide 14, our conclusion is that Nigeria has embedded CITES through multi-agency legal framework. Our main goal has been that of public-private partnership to strengthen law enforcement capacity, gain support for agency operations, enhance logistic capacity of agency through provision of operational vehicles, enhance community engagement. In all, our recommendations will be that much as we have gained space, much as we have improved, there's still space for more. There's still a lot to do. And some of the areas we need attention is ensuring that seized confiscated wildlife specimens, their disposal using CITES approved approaches are capital intensive. Development partners are urged to assist NESREA to achieve a centralized storage system. This will improve stockpile accountability and reduce fragmented reporting. Logistics support to the agency on investigation and arrest of IWT offenders is key. NESREA needs professional wildlife analysts to aid periodic synchronization of national records of IWT. There's need to assist and to train officers of the agency on forensic analysis of samples of seized and confiscated wildlife. These are some of our recommendations. Maybe as we go along, we'll be able to handle any other issue that may arise in the course of this discussion. Thank you, Yangon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And it's clear from your presentation that as Nigeria's CITES designated enforcement authority and focal point, NESREA plays a key role in promoting interagency collaboration, enforcing wildlife crime, and including domestic legislation on the illegal wildlife trade, and handling seizures and care of confiscated wildlife, including, if I'm correct, the first destruction of seized wildlife products in Nigeria. And thank you also for highlighting the importance of the public-private partnerships like the WJC NESREA partnership and the recently signed MOU. And this partnership will help to enhance joint intelligence and investigative support, prosecution, and legal follow-up, which are all essential to building lasting deterrence against high-level offenders. I'd like now to turn to Dr. Ross McEwing, Science and Technology Lead for UNODC's Global Prime on Crimes That Affect the Environment. Ross has 2 decades of experience. He joined UNODC in 2021, and he's based at the UNODC Regional Office in Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok. He provides global support to law enforcement agencies, strengthening capacity in scientific and forensic approaches to wildlife and environmental crime. And previously, he served as director of TRACE, Wildlife Forensics Network, a UK-based NGO that he co-founded in 2005. Currently, he's coordinating development of wildlife DNA forensic capacity in Nigeria under the EU Guards Wild Project. Ross, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Olivia, and thanks to Wildlife Justice Commission for the invitation and this very important meeting. I know we've all got a little bit of fatigue with the side events. We have that as panel speakers as well, and looking out and watching you having a beer or a glass of wine is quite painful. So I'm pretending I have a little scotch here just to keep me going. So we'll start there. Yeah, I'm going to give a few brief comments just from the UNODC perspective. There's far more important presenters here, and I feel a little bit of a fraud being called Dr. McEwing after the professor's intervention, so I'll just carry on. It's important to know what UNODC is and what UNODC isn't, so sometimes that gets confused a little bit. So we are not a law enforcement agency. We're not like Interpol or World Customs Organization. Our role is different. So the main objective of UNODC's global program on crimes that affect the environment is to combine legal reform, operational support, intelligence, financial crime tools, and international cooperation. So we're much more on the capacity building and facilitation side. And we do that to strengthen the global response to wildlife and other environmental crimes. And of course, Nigeria has been implicated in illegal wildlife crime chains. But as we've seen over the years, it's been very open to addressing the shortfalls. And we're trying to pivot this now to make Nigeria a regional leader in tackling wildlife crime. The picture I put up is really recent, actually. I know we talk about elephants and pangolins a lot, but it's actually from Operation Rose, which is a Nigeria Customs Special Wildlife Office collaboration with Focus Conservation, another NGO providing support to the government. And this is from November 16, so it's a very recent seizure of a lion cub, obviously, and 2 Tantalus monkeys. So again, it just shows this kind of operational support and the effectiveness of training and collaboration at these checkpoints can be really, really positive. So I think this is important to talk beyond just pangolins and ivory, which leads me into talking about pangolins and ivory. So maybe we can go to the next slide, please. Also important, just talking about Nigeria, is this is data that's come from the World Wildlife Crime Report, which I'm sure you all know. And it's really important to point out that this World Wildlife Crime Report is produced by these annual illegal trade reports that countries submit to CITES. Nigeria has been very good at submitting those reports, and that really makes a difference. It really helps to showcase that. So any countries that are not really producing those documents, it's really helpful that you do. I think those reports could be better, and I think there's opportunities to develop them better, add additional data. But Nigeria has been one of those countries that has been really successful in producing that data, which allows the analysis, which then allows donors to say, okay, we see what we need to fund. And you can see from this data, it's commonplace by now, but you can see there's something happened in 2016. There was a switch between where elephant ivory was coming from. Something happened, and that basically was that the law enforcement was getting better in some countries, particularly in Tanzania and Kenya, and that displaces the crime. And basically what you're looking for then is another place to move your product through. And to do that, you want a location that's got strategically geographic and logistical advantages as a transport point, potential for corruption within weakened border inspections, ineffective legal and investigative frameworks. So these are all things we know, and those kind of combined in 2016 and created a bit of an enabling environment that increased the illegal ivory movement through Nigeria to international markets. So this is a bit of a failing for all of us, really, including UNODC, is that sometimes we tackle country by country, and displacing activity does not really help to tackle the illegal wildlife trade. But I'm sure we'll see figures that look much better for Nigeria soon. We just need to keep working country by country. Or alternatively, we work more in a regional perspective, and that's probably what we should be doing. And then just the next slide, please. Again, it's very similar. We're seeing a pangolin scale. It's, again, same kind of time frame. We're seeing Nigeria being kind of implicated in 33% of the trade over that particular time period. So as I said before, we're working and have been working. You've heard what everyone's doing to try and help Nigeria tackle this issue. But displacement can buy time, but it shouldn't be the primary strategy. The goal here should be to network disruption and not just route suppression. So we need to be working much more regionally in terms of tackling transnational crimes. And next slide, please. One way UNODC does this is through an operation called SAMA, which you may have heard about. Some people may have talked about it. And that's an initiative that's led by UNODC and the World Customs Organization, specifically the Regional Intelligence Liaison Offices. It's entirely coordinated by customs authorities across Africa, specifically to combat wildlife trafficking. So objectives of Operation SAMA are to tackle wildlife trafficking, disruption of criminal networks, really working beyond isolating seizures, so looking at investigations beyond the seizure and identifying where capacity building needs to happen as well. There's been two operations. The first one, Operation SAMA, in 2024, which I'm not going to go through a huge amount of data about. There was 104 seizures. What was interesting about it was that 44% of those customs seizures were based on intelligence investigations. Okay, so we hear lots about risk profiling and all those things, but 44% were intelligence investigations. So this is why it's really important to share information and to be working on those kind of advanced investigative techniques. And the top confiscated items were, of course, pangolin scales, elephant ivory, etc. SAMA 2, which just finished this year, again, I won't go into too much detail, but 55% of those seizures were intelligence-led. So just kind of hammering home this idea that we really need to be working on sharing intelligence. So what's important about Operation SAMA is the part that Nigeria plays in this operation. So it's been taking on a little bit of a leadership role. So it's not just about participating in the operation. So it's also been sharing information. It's been hosting meetings. It's been taking a coordinating role. And I think that really shows that the government is really interested in trying to not just improve the national perspective, but work regionally as well. I think we'll go to the next slide, please. One of the challenges, as we've talked about before with Nigeria, is the existing legislation for wildlife has not been very good. The new legislation is fantastic, it's really good. But sometimes that limits the ability of law enforcement to exchange information with other countries. And I'll just highlight this a little bit. It's something else that UNODC does. It's called the WIRE meetings. These are wildlife inter-regional enforcement meetings. And what we do here is we bring lots of law enforcement agencies together in one place at one time, specifically to talk about cases and for them to share information. So in this particular meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago, we brought 130, 140 participants from around the world, and that's customs, police, wildlife agencies together, and we put them in a room, and then we separate them off into restricted access meetings, and they share lots of information informally about cases that happen. It's a really effective way of sharing information when countries are not sure how to do that officially. So this is the 9th time we've had those WIRE meetings. It's a really effective way for for countries to share information. Nigeria delegation there was particularly active, meetings with China, with Vietnam, with regional partners as well. So again, just showing what Nigeria, our counterparts in the law enforcement are actually doing. So again, a really good shining example of things that are improving. And then next slide, please. I'll just go on to a project which is kind of just starting, but it's called the Guard Wildlife Project. Some of you may have heard of this. It's a European Union funded project, multi-year project. And this is a really interesting project because of the way it's designed to work. So it uses the IQIC partners in terms of Interpol, UNODC, World Customs Organization, CITES Secretariat are all involved in this project. And then what it does is it uses the CSOs to implement some activities as well. So it's really working together to elevate the impact of this project. So it's quite an unusual way to work, and this is the first time I've really seen this. And UNODC have the lead in this project. Our job is to coordinate all those different NGOs and all those IQIC partners. So that's the fun part. But it's a really effective way of working, because what it does is it means that we're all working in our space. We know where our expertise are. We're not duplicating effort. We're not trying to run the same training courses, etc. So Nigeria is one of the priority countries within GUARD. I'll just run through what are the things we're really trying to do. The first one is improved cross-border collaboration and international cooperation. And this is where the IQIC partners normally take the lead. There's 6 other countries which are priority 1 in this project. This is where we take the lead. We official channels of sharing information. We only work with law enforcement agencies. And this is the first time I think what we've done here is we've brought an NGO, CSO, into this kind of arena. So Wildlife Justice Commission will be supporting this. And this is very unusual for us, and it shows how well respected Wildlife Justice Commission are, that we can kind of maneuver in this way. But certainly it shows how well Wildlife Justice Commission are connected within that MOU with Nigeria government. So that's the first thing which is really exciting for us. The second thing we do here is we strengthen national legislative frameworks and administration of criminal justice. And the CSO working on that component of work activity for Nigeria is the Environmental Investigation Agency. And they are, as you already know, have been working very heavily in this arena. So they will be working on lots of projects to support the new law when it comes in. Third thing we do is increase capacity and improve the interagency collaboration of frontline officers. Again, this is what Wildlife Justice Commission is doing within this project. This relationship they have allows us to work very closely with frontline officers. So there's a range of support there. And fourthly, we have improved wildlife forensics capacity. On the 8th of December, we move the Forensic DNA Lab, which is a portable lab, across to Abuja and then Lagos. So that once that's in place, then we can start processing casework as well. So that's really exciting for us. And we also take a coordination role. Lots of time, wildlife DNA forensics samples leave the country, they go to other places, results are produced. It's very important that that data belongs to the government. It's very important that that data gets to Interpol and is used for enforcement. So that's a really interesting project for us. And then just finally, the last slide, I'll just go through very quickly. One of the other things that we did within UNODC is to run the IQIC toolkit. There were 33 full recommendations, which I won't go into. You can see a couple that are just on there. One is to include the Joint Investigations Task Force or team, which we've heard about before, and a few other ones which are really important as well. So lots of things happening in Nigeria. It's very important to capitalize on the new act, the new law, and so that we can show good results. So that's what UNODC is doing, and luckily we're working with a very forward-thinking government and very well embedded CSOs like Wildlife Justice Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. McEwing. Sorry to emphasize it, but you worked hard for that, doctor, so well done on you. Thank you for stressing the importance of the joint intelligence-led operations, and congratulations on Operation Sama 1 and 2 to ensure this coordinated response across global supply chains and stay ahead of the evolving dynamics in criminal landscape. So that was really clear for your presentation. And also congratulations on the successful outcome of the Guard Wildlife Project and iQuick Toolkit. I know there's a lot of work to be done, but fantastic that you've kicked it off and you've got such an array of partners in Nigeria and other countries, and also CSOs to work on it together. So really key initiatives. Thank you for that. I'd like now to turn to DCG Timi Boindi, who is participating in a dual capacity. First, on behalf of the Comptroller General of Customs, the CGC of Nigeria Customs Service, Mr. Bashir Adewale Adenije, MFR, who is unavoidably absent. Secondly, he is sitting as the official who directs all enforcement matters at the Nigeria Customs Service, an absolutely massive department with a huge task. DCG Bomodi is a seasoned customs officer with leadership and expertise. He's been instrumental in strengthening Nigeria's enforcement response to IWT. He served as National Public Relations Officer for NCS and Area Controller of Badgeri Seme, and where he led several interagency operations with successful IWT arrests. DCG Timi Boindi continues to drive intelligence-led enforcement and interagency collaboration efforts to effectively address IWT with keen interest and support of the CGC of NCS. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Olivia, for that introduction. Also, we want to thank the WJC for inviting the Nigerian Customs Service to this event. We're indeed delighted to be here. The Nigerian Customs Service sits at the front lines of enforcement of both national laws on trade, and also we sit at the front lines of enforcing wildlife laws. The Nigerian Customs Service is a paramilitary organization, and we are spread across the whole federation in all 36 states and also in the federal capital, Abuja. Our structure is such that we have our zonal offices in 4 different locations across the country, but our enforcement units are also spread widely across the country in all 36 states, across all land borders, seaports, and airports. And they are designed in such a way that we have a robust approach to law enforcement, and this is evidenced by the number of interceptions that we've had across the country over the years. The enforcement unit has been very, very successful in wildlife enforcement throughout, from the inception of the wildlife unit, through collaborations with organizations like the WJC. From when it started, we had difficulties getting our acts together, and it was indeed pretty difficult. But from July 2021, when we had seizures of about 7,167 kilograms of pangolin scales and about 888 kilograms of ivory, we have had a significant increase in the number of products, wildlife products, recorded as seizures, and this is a tremendous improvement. So today we can talk about seizures enabled by partnership that is in excess of 25,000 tons of seized illegal wildlife products, and in the process we've had about 15 successful prosecutions with a significant number of convictions too. And these are in addition to cases that are still ongoing in our high courts. A lot has been happening in enforcement, and it has to do with the high level of synergy that exists between the Nigerian Customs Service and other law enforcement agencies, like in the case of NESREA, the police, EFCC, and even the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. This synergy has enabled us to share information and to act, in real time when dealing with possible wildlife crimes. And from what we've learned is that, you have to act quickly to be able to, make a success out of combating, these crimes. We've had situations where our enforcement officers, especially embedded at the borders, had, in enforcing national laws on wildlife, had made significant seizures in areas where we never even anticipated, even though we know we have the popular markets where some of these items are sold. We also have places that are indeed hidden from view. Like recently, we had interventions at the Federal Capital Territory, where factory-scale production of donkey skin and bones, amazing, it was found. We were talking about over 50,000 um, kilograms of these items, and it was really, really significant. And we've had these successes. Now, we have learned that it is very important in enforcement to bring everybody on board. No organization can do it alone. The Nigerian Customs Service, even though it has the powers of a paramilitary organization, needs the collaboration of other government agencies, like in this case, the Wildlife Justice Commission. Intelligence sharing, as we said earlier, is quite significant. We've also noticed that and I'm glad it was brought up by the UNODC, that we are going to establish a forensic lab. It's very important because in the process of investigation, we need to establish traceability. We also need to establish, origin of some of these products. And we've noticed that a significant amount of the seizures that we've made within the country are items that do not really originate from the country. So we know that we have significant incursions from our neighbors in Cameroon. We've had all the way from the Congo. And so there needs to be a lot of intelligence sharing within that region to see that products that originate from outside Nigeria can be anticipated proactively using the resources available to us. At the Nigerian Customs Service, we established risk management as a criteria for targeting some of these criminals. And if we are able to develop a dossier, a risk management compendium, it enables us to be more proactive in doing what we do. So, as I said earlier, the evidence that's available to us shows that there has been significant improvements in enforcement in Nigeria. From 2021 to date, these improvements have gone up like 150, 200% in terms of interventions and in terms of convictions. So many lessons that we need to learn, but key to the lessons, as I said, is more collaborations with organizations like the WJC, UNODC, Interpol, and the WCO. We've had a series of trainings, both within the law enforcement circle, the Nigerian Customs Service. We had trainings with our legal departments for prosecutions at the courts, because it's one thing to make this arrest, it's another thing to be able to have the skill sets by our legal team to go to the courts to achieve prosecutions. And we've noted that the trainings that our officers have received in this regard has contributed tremendously to the successes that we've recorded so far. But indeed, we can never have enough of these trainings, both within the department and within the legal system, the judicial system. We need more of this, but more importantly, we need the infrastructure that will enable us, gather intelligence, because intelligence is key in tackling wildlife crimes. That basically is it, what we've had, the experience we've had so far in law enforcement in Nigerian Customs Service. Thank you.
Thank you, DCG Bamodi. And you've highlighted the proven effectiveness of multi-stakeholder partnerships, such as the Wildlife Justice Commission and NCS1, and providing, for example, the mentoring and operational support and mobilizing intelligence-led enforcement to help disrupt the organized criminal networks engaging in this crime type. And this collaboration can strengthen CITES compliance and implementation, and I think that's important to keep in mind as we're here at the CITES COP, the links between fighting this criminal activity and our goal here of helping to keep these species from going extinct. We look forward to continuing these efforts together. And we also did want to take a moment to congratulate the GC of Customs for his recent election as chairperson of the World Customs Organization. This is a critical role to spearhead the customs community, including on the global response to IWT. So please pass on our congratulations. And next, I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Alba Adzenda. Ms. Adzenda, the current CITES focal point for Nigeria, is participating today on behalf of Mrs. Halima Bawari, Director, Federal Department of Forestry, who couldn't attend this event. We'd also like to express our appreciation for Madame Boget, former CITES focal point of Nigeria's CITES Management Authority. Thank you very much, Madam. Now, Mrs. Adzende has an extensive public service experience on environmental protection, for example, in roles as Assistant Director of Forestry and the focal point of the International Network of Bamboo and Rattans Engagement in Nigeria. She now serves as Deputy Director of Forestry at the Federal Minister of the Environment of Nigeria, where she continues to address environmental issues at domestic level, including wildlife forestry crimes. Madam, the floor is yours.
On behalf of the Honorable Minister of Environment, Malam Balarabe Abbas Lawal, I want to appreciate Wildlife Justice Commission for your continued support, to Nigeria in the fight against illegal wildlife trade. And like Oliver Twist, we seek for more support. So, and we hope we'll continue having a fruitful engagement. Thank you. My presentation is centered on strategic partnership and multi-agency cooperation, but the focus is more on the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force and the WJC. So why multi-agency cooperation? Why must different agencies come together to fight a common enemy? This is very, very obvious because what we're talking about is illegal wildlife trade, and this transnational wildlife and forest crime undermines biodiversity, livelihoods, and governance. It doesn't allow progress in any society. So crimes are organized, cross-border, and often linked to corruption and other illegal trades. Transnational crimes transcend national borders. So it has to be a coordinated effort from different agencies, between countries, among different countries. So this cooperation is very, very important because no single agency or country can fight illegal wildlife trade. It is transnational. So this we need to know. And the reason why multi-agency cooperation is also important is because we need different technical skills from different people to tackle this challenge. We need investigative powers to respond to issues, that will address effectively this illegal wildlife trade. So it is very, very important that different agencies come together, cooperate to fight illegal wildlife trade. Although the NEAC report acknowledges progress in interagency collaboration, but many countries still struggle with weak interagency cooperation. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force. The Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force is a West African strategy to combat wildlife and forest crime. And it was launched last year when Nigeria launched the national strategy to combat wildlife and forest crimes. And the task force brought on board different enforcement agencies, leveraging their expertise in the fight against illegal wildlife trade and thereby implementing the provisions of the national strategy. Just like I said earlier, we need different agencies to come together to fight, illegal wildlife trade. So it's very, very important, and that was the reason why the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force was brought to force. Okay. The law, I'm going to talk about the structure now, and it's been said by the NESREA DG and then the Nigeria Customs Service representative. But I'm still just going to say one or two things about it. The Wildlife Enforcement Law Task Force has 15 enforcement agencies. Just like I said earlier, it's leveraging the existing structure of national enforcement agencies in Nigeria. So we have the NESREA, we have the National Park Service, we have the Nigeria Customs Service, the Police Force, the Department of State Security, the Ministry of Justice, among others. There's 15 in all, with the Federal Ministry of Environment, Forestry Department being the secretariat of the task force. The WJC. Our collaboration with WJC provides specialized actionable intelligence and targeted capacity building, transforming enforcement from reactive seizures to proactive dismantling of organized criminal networks. WJC has been very, very instrumental to our success in the fight against illegal wildlife trade in Nigeria. And from some of their contributions, the core contributions include actionable intelligence. They provide high-level intelligence analysis focused on kingpins and criminal logistics. And we have a strategic collaboration with them, and is embedding support within Nigerian agencies, just like we have said earlier. And they have formalized a formal MOU with Nigeria Customs Service, the NESREA. I think the recent MOU was signed in September 2025, and there are recent convictions too. The partnership between WJC and Nigeria Customs Service, some of the successes have been said, but let me just reiterate some of them again. The partnership successfully dismantled major trafficking routes, shifting Nigeria from the world's largest hub for pangolin trafficking to a global success. Over the years, since they started in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, July 2021, the partnership has been very, very successful in operation. And some of the key successes since inception include seizure of over 25.5 metric tons of pangolin scales, majority of which was supported by WJC intelligence. Then the arrest of several high-level traffickers wildlife criminals, which resulted in 15 out of 20 convictions that Nigeria has recorded till date, with many more ongoing cases. Training and capacity building for Nigeria Customs Service officers and enforcement officers. And the training, they've had trainings on intelligence gathering, investigation strategies, among others. There are other enforcement efforts too ongoing in Nigeria, one of which is the signing of the cooperative framework agreement between Nigeria and Cameroon on transboundary ecosystems conservation and sustainable management of forestry and wildlife resources, which was signed last year, 28 April 2024. And this is to protect both the resources, the shared wildlife and forest resources of both countries. And this is very, very key, because just like we said, wildlife, the Wildlife Criminal Act does not know, it moves from one country to the other. It's a kind of networking. So we need collaboration, we need cooperation between countries. Another enforcement effort that is key to the success of our illegal wildlife trade is that we have just recently the Endangered Species Bill, Endangered Species Conservation and Protection Bill, has been passed by the National Assembly, and at the moment is waiting presidential assent. When this bill is finally passed into law, if it's assented to, it will bring stiffer penalties, that will, be deterrent to traffickers, to criminals. It has up to about provisions for up to 10 years imprisonment if you contravene the law, and so much fines to be paid, unlike the former law or the former act, that was the former law was weak, and that was why we had to review it. The first one was in 1985, and it was amended in 2016. And now the 2016 till date is quite a long time. There are so many emerging, issues on ground regarding illegal wildlife trade and transnational criminal acts. So we had to review this, and it's in line with evolving issues, and which we adequately address the issues of illegal wildlife trade and transnational criminal acts. At this point, we have on the next slide, please. We have on the screen a picture of a 6th pangolin. This is one of the operations that the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force carried out last month. Some people, we got the intelligence that some people are, trafficking and trading illegally in pangolin. So we now pretended to be interested in the pangolin. So it's like setting a trap for them, and they just fell for it, and that was why how 2 of the people were arrested. So they were arrested. They are still in custody as we speak, and these pangolins, there are 3 of them. They've been taken to one of the national parks in Nigeria. So let me quickly go through this. The key enforcement actions between WJC, Nigeria Customs Service, and the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force. The intelligence and analysis gathering operations data on high-value targets, supply chains, and financial flows. The other one is an investigation and interdiction coordinated. They coordinate the investigation and interdiction together, rapid intelligence-led operations to secure evidence and seize contraband, prosecution and sentencing, ensuring evidence withstands scrutiny, prosecuting organized criminal networks, and seeking deterrent sentences. At this point, I want to appreciate WJC, because they've been giving us assistance on forensic analysis. They've been helping us in doing some DNA tests to pin down some of these criminals. So what you have on the next slide, please, is just the way the enforcement action is, from intelligence gathering to intelligence gathering and analysis to intelligence and interdiction coordinated. Then we have at the bottom of the blocks, we have the deterrence and the community engagement, while the Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force in the middle, coordinating both the intelligence gathering and the prosecution, and then the engagement of community members, so as to keep them aware of these illegal activities. So I'll just quickly talk about this is just applying this model. The next slide, please. Applying the model to forest crime. We know if we don't have forest, we can't have wildlife. So as we are protecting the forest, as we are protecting wildlife, we should also protect the forest. That's why I put these 3 slides to just talk about applying this model to forest crime. So some of the resources, the next slide, some of the resources and capacity needed to combat forest crime, the technical aspects, the forensic that WJC is helping us to do, traceability system, operational, and legal and partnership. We are partnering with UNODC, we are partnering with WJC, with EPI. So the last one, let me just conclude. Let me conclude now because I've wrapped up the 3 slides talking about the forest, how to combat forest crime. So I'll wrap up now. The strategic partnership between Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force and WJC demonstrates how coordinated multi-agency action can deliver real measurable impact. The collaborative enforcement model built on clear roles, targeted training, and robust monitoring and evaluation offers a powerful blueprint that can be adopted to effectively tackle forest crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azenda. You highlighted how strong partnerships through strengthened interagency and multi-stakeholder collaboration are key to building an effective and coordinated response to the illegal wildlife trade. The successes of Nigeria's Wildlife Law Enforcement Task Force, and of course the active cooperation of the Wildlife Justice Commission. And we're really looking forward to seeing you apply similar things in the area of forestry, so we look forward to that.
Thank you.
I'd like now to turn to our final expert, Ms. Abim Izafida, Regional Manager, West and Central Africa for the Wildlife Justice Commission. Abim has a distinguished law enforcement professional with over 35 years of experience in customs and counter-wildlife crime enforcement. She was formerly a national contact point for the World Customs Organization's Regional Intelligence Liaison Office, RELO, and the team manager of the Nigeria Customs Service Special Wildlife Office, her brainchild for the Nigeria Customs Service. And records have it that Abim was essential for championing wildlife crime enforcement in Nigeria. And we are absolutely delighted to have Abim be part of our team now. And Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here this time of a day. I know everyone is tired and they're itching to go. And so we appreciate your being here. I also want to say a big thank you to our high-level panel for taking the pain and, going ahead of me to make the road very easy. The job is easier now, so I won't bore you with too much stories because they've done, most of the things that I would need to do here, to say here. But I would want to start by answering some of the questions that I've gotten in the past how many days. A lot of people have asked me, what does the WJC do? Who are you? Are you fighting for just pangolins and ivory alone, elephants alone? Because they've seen our reports, the disruption and disarray. And for those who haven't seen that here, there's a Q code on the flyers, on the executive summaries that you have in front of you. You can scan this Q code, and I'm sure the Q code will be, QR code will be displayed later on. But to just briefly explain what we do at the Wildlife Justice Commission, it's good that I'm actually taking the floor after Madam Adende because she talked about forest crime. At the Wildlife Justice Commission, our mission is to disrupt and help dismantle the transnational criminal networks trading in wildlife, timber, and fish by collecting evidence and turning these into accountability. So you can see we're not fighting just for pangolins and ivories. Wildlife crime generally, timber, and the marine crime. And how do we do this? We partner with law enforcement. This is where our strength lies. We partner with law enforcement who are doing this work effectively, trying to enforce the law. Our role is just to support the work that they're doing on the ground. They are actually the ones championing the cause. And so this we do to be able to carry out our mission effectively. Now, like I said, I'm not going to bore you with too much stories again, considering that, the panelists have said it all. But I want to draw your attention to this particular slide. Can I have that? Yes. This says it all. Let's look at these charts, and we can see. From the charts, you can see the blue line, the one that is highest there, and it says the year, which is 2019. If we look at the one 2015, you see the level it is, and you can see 2024. This just shows the story of Nigeria between 2015 and 2024, talking about the ivory and the pangolin trade, the illegal trade and trafficking of this species in Nigeria. 2015, you can see the graph rising, and then in 2019, it got to its peak. In 2019, between 2016 and 2019, as someone who was with the frontline officers, I knew the challenges the country was facing. I knew how difficult it was. I knew how we used to feel then, each time we heard the news from Singapore, from Vietnam, saying something came out of Nigeria, a seizure is made in Singapore, and by the time they trace it down, they say it came out of Nigeria. This was the story between 2015 to 2019, and that's why you can see the graph going high. 2019, you see it started dropping. I would say thanks to COVID in 2020, that's why it looks like it dropped. But then, if there was not an intervention in 2021, I can bet that this would have, spiked, it would have gone higher. Because what happened in 2019 and 2020 was because the doors were shut, the borders were shut, and the criminals were not able to do anything. And so they were consolidating, stockpiling. And what they would have done was to pick up again from 2022 when the borders were open and start their illicit act. But unfortunately, Nigeria revamped, Nigeria re-strategized, Nigeria went back to the drawing board while everybody was indoor in 2020. In 2021, thanks to the coming in of the WJC, the enforcement action that was taken in Nigeria in 2021 actually helped, the graph to go down. The seizures were being made now within the country, and it was reducing the illegal export that was going out of Nigeria. And so the volume of illegal trade began to reduce. And you can see in 2024, it's still going down. Now, the enforcement action in Nigeria has actually, report has it that these has actually stopped the illegal exports, the amount of imports that, illegal imports that is received in Asia for 5 to 6, in the past 5 years now. I don't think anything has gone out of Nigeria. Precisely 3 years, nothing has gone out of Nigeria to Asia, thanks to the amount of enforcement that is being carried out within the country. This is where the WJC actually, showed the strength, brought in their expertise as at that period. The result is what we are seeing now. The result of the work, the enforcement approach that was introduced by WJC. Now, I won't bore you with what actually transpired then, now, and then and now. But I want to say emphatically and here that what made a difference was the approach to enforcement, the intelligence, the amount of time that was taken to analyze the information, to produce actionable intelligence. This then supported with case management, which is being helped, which is now being used for the prosecution process. That is what changed between 2021 and now, and that is what Nigeria has now adopted. This process, which is now world-class process, world-class strategy for Nigeria. The results we can see here of this partnership: 42 arrests between 2021 and now, 15 successful convictions out of the 20 that Nigeria has recorded, like Madam Azande and the customs boss said. Before 2021, there was no convictions in Nigeria, not because we weren't making arrests or Nigeria was not making efforts to arrest. Arrests were actually, in fact, in 2018, there was an there was an interception of over 12,000 pangolin scales in Nigeria in 2018 by the Nigeria Customs Service. So much so that the CITES Secretariat came to Nigeria to come and see if truly this happened. And it did. The difference then and now, like I said, is what happens after the arrest. How was the arrest carried out? Is it enough for you now to take the cases to court and prosecute? That's the difference between then and now. Now we are doing this with the law enforcement like it should be done. World-class investigative techniques are being deployed. These are the difference. This is just the difference between then and now. And thanks to the approach and the model that WJC has introduced in Nigeria. Like I said, I wouldn't want to bore you with too many things. You can see the seizures up there. These records are verifiable. They are not, these are not made up stories. They're verifiable. The records are there to show that these seizures actually happened. Joint effort between the Nigeria Customs Service and the WJC. You can go back to check the records and you will see that these actually happened. And the cases, the files are there for the records as well. Now, I'd also want to highlight one very important part so that we all can know and see what the true situation is right now. Here, in quotes here, are some of the responses we're getting now in the course of investigation from the criminals. In the past, you would go into any of these open markets. The traffic report in 2016 says it clearly. You go into the markets in Nigeria and they will readily sell products to you. But in 2025, I tell you categorically, you don't get that again in Nigeria. This is what you would hear them say. Oh, it's too hot here. No, we can't do business again. No, the law enforcement are watching and we can't do trade. We can't sell such things. For them to even show you those products now, they will want to verify that you're not law enforcement. This is the result of what WJC had done in Nigeria. Again, best practice. This is what the model is all about. This has increased, the amount of what the reports, the prosecution in Nigeria. And the most important part, again, is targeting the high-level criminals. That is so unique about the work we're doing in WJC. Targeting high-level criminals. Once you take down the head of an organized criminal group, you have distorted the whole group. But when you're targeting the low-level poachers, I'm not saying they shouldn't be targeted, but the main focus should be the high-level criminals first. That distorts that crime group. But when you start from the low levels, you're keeping the Don, you're keeping the capo. He's still there. He would recruit another, a member into the group. But when you target the high-level criminals, the group gets distorted. This is the approach that the Wildlife Justice Commission has deployed to intelligence-led enforcement in Nigeria and in all the other countries where we operate at the moment. This has also helped us to enhance international cooperation I can tell you so many countries, Mozambique, we shared intelligence with Mozambique from the analysis that was done in Nigeria. And we've been able to make arrests in Mozambique. In Liberia as well, we've worked with other NGOs in Liberia to make arrests. We actually worked with the Focus Conservation in Liberia, and we were successful in making arrests. So many other, partnerships, so many other corporations that we have actually, that has actually helped us in our successful model. The Wildlife Justice Commission use investigative tools, top-notch investigative tools, world-class analysts, and these are part of the things that we do to ensure the success of our operations. I would conclude by asking you to please scan the QR code, read more on our reports on disruption and disarray, and to show you more about what we're talking about here. In addition to all other things that you have been reading, all other reports that you've been reading for all other organizations or partners, it'd be nice to read this and have a better understanding of what we're doing in Nigeria. The next steps for us in Nigeria now is the partnership we have signed with the NESREA, National Environmental Standard Regulation Agency, which the DG here has mentioned, and also the support we're going to be, giving to the Wildlife Enforcement Task Force. This task force, like they've mentioned, has the customs, the NFIU, and all of them in it. So it means that the Wildlife Justice Commission is not excluding anyone. Our work and our model is to work with all agencies, government agencies, to ensure that we dismantle organized crime network, eradicate it completely. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam Isfiada. You highlighted the phenomenal partnership that we've managed to develop, thanks also in part to your enormous efforts when you were at the Nigeria Customs Service, and how we've worked together as a team to create these impactful results for pangolins and elephants, and also our report and how it contains these findings on insights into trafficking trends. So if you want to take a step back and look what's happened in the trafficking of pangolin scales and elephant ivory, the report contains some really useful trends. It also offers valuable recommendations about guiding effective enforcement for IWT and drawing on outcomes for this partnership. So I would encourage everybody indeed to scan the QR code and to read the report, which is available on our website.